Hello, innovators. I'm Todd Weyandt, and welcome to the Bridging the Gap podcast presented by Great Tech Group. You're invited to join our conversation to model the future of construction innovation and the digital transformation adventure of this great industry. This episode is part of our special Industrialized Construction series, recorded live from Advancing Prefabrication 2025. So buckle up. We're diving into the biggest trends, the boldest ideas, and the real conversations shaping the future of industrialized construction. My guest on this episode is Matt Graves. He's a leading expert in industrialized construction, prefabrication, and digital transformation. With a passion for streamlining workflows and leveraging technology, Matt has been at the forefront of helping companies scale prefab and optimize construction efficiency. Get ready for an insightful conversation on standardization, AI's role in prefab, and the future of industrialized construction. Now, on with the show. Well, Matt, thanks so much for taking the time and joining us here at Advancing Prefab.
Thank you for having me.
So what brings you to Advancing Prefab this year?
This year, I always really enjoy, this is one of the few occasions that I get to see both the new aspects of the industry, but also, frankly, a lot of my customers are here. And I get a chance to talk to them about, what we've done well, what we need to do in the future. And I just was talking to someone who, in our relationship, we're past being new, and now it's about refinement and creating, a continuous improvement cycle with their firm. So
Yeah,
that type of interaction is why I'm here.
Yeah, love it. Let's back up before we really get into the meat of the conversation. What got you into construction industry to begin with?
I'm in a third generation family business.
Very cool.
I went to Purdue University for construction management, graduated on Saturday, and was swinging a hammer Monday morning. A metal stud and drywall contractor that also does ceilings, flooring, business furniture, painting, and 9 years ago had the opportunity to start a prefabrication division. So that's how I got where I'm at.
Yeah. What led you to start the prefab unit?
Our core company that owns Great Lakes Prefabrication functions in a lot of different disciplines in 11 counties. Instead of expanding geographically, tried to continue to sell more quality services to the same customer base. That can only go so far, and so Great Lakes Prefabrication was an extension of our customer service mentality and an opportunity to expand beyond those 11 or 12 counties.
What are some of the biggest lessons learned over that decade in prefab?
Everything's a process. One of the things that I learned pretty early on was, for me personally, I have to turn everything into a process, a to-do list. It's guaranteed failure if I don't try and standardize at least my own process. I was partnering a lot on the fabrication side, fortunate enough to be part of the Stow Panel Technology Affiliate Network. Within that network, I had the opportunity to work with some industry experts that had been doing it from the 80s forward, going from counting sheets of drywall and screws to sitting at tables with owners over 10% drawings was a huge leap. Establishing and figuring out the process of how to take those aspirational ideas and turn them into a prefabricated product, I found it to be really fun and engaging, and just really have enjoyed that process.
That's awesome. What do you think is driving the growth and the opportunity in prefab right now?
I mean, I think there's a lot of the industry. While there's we're nowhere near the finish line. The maturity level of people's understanding of what we're trying to accomplish is dramatically changing. There are some anchor end users that are driving prefabrication, really what Amy Marks was talking about this morning. And those efforts, now are starting to resonate in that the project teams that service those end user clients are taking their expertise, going to other markets, other customers, other types of buildings. And there's starting to be sort of a feedback loop in a positive way that this, obscure, one-off, everything custom kind of thing, that there's processes and people that can help you get from where you're at to where you need to be.
So what kind of mindset shift is required to, you talked about getting over the idea that everything is a one-off. What kind of mindset shift is required for that?
One of the things I think about a lot, and I share a lot now with people who might be new to what we do in the prefabrication industry, is, when as much as we want everything to be a plug and play product, because that's manufacturing for the foreseeable future, that's going to be, not part of our industry. So when the outcome is never the same, the only thing you can standardize is the process. And so I've really, in our business and in our affiliate network, I've really tried to zero in on creating a predictable pathway. Yeah, the mindset shift for me and for, I think, people in the construction industry is creating a repeatable process and pathway to get to a different result each time. And then from a ownership or a general contracting perspective is, I can't tell you how many people have challenged, our thinking as if it's the Wild West. Like we're just making this up as we go. The fact that we've been, I'm certainly not the first in the industry, and I've been making a living at it for 9 years. But somehow I still talk to people that think this is new. It's sort of interesting. I tend to find it's geographical in some cases.
Okay.
Certain geographies are less incentivized to, whether it's labor cost or labor availability. Like there just seems to be some geographies that are just completely comfortable with the status quo, and they're a hard market to crack. And then there's other markets where it's a differentiator. And what I really like to see is there's certain markets where it's not a differentiator, it's a qualifier. Like if you're not doing prefab, you're not even included, because that's the market has moved in that way. One thing that I've realized is that, certain geographies, certain types of clients that I've encountered still have a mindset in which they think this is, new, or that they're taking some risk that's undue. And it seems to be very geographic in nature, whether it's lack of, maybe they've got an abundance of labor or the labor costs are low. There just seems to be different incentives by geographic market. What I like to see is that in some markets, it's not considered as new, or but then there's also markets that I really like to see that it's a qualifier. If you're not prefabricating, you're not considered to be part of a viable solution, whether that's in certain healthcare markets or certain cities. Using prefabrication as a differentiator is where we like to be. And I think that those markets are starting to develop, and we're happy to be part of them.
So when it comes to roadblocks, are there certain roadblocks that maybe we're putting in our way that are pretty easily to clear out, and what are those?
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing that I find to be a challenge in an industry that takes a significant amount of investment is the mindset of our industry that everything needs to be converted to 3 or 4 or 5 bids, that I'm taking a low price. It really disincentivizes the amount of information sharing that's required for it to become standard. If I write an architectural design playbook for Stowe Panel and I share that, and I'm rewarded with being, having 6 bidders against me on a job, like it disincentivizes me from sharing that information in the short run. So I think we're just in this weird part of our evolution where there's information that's been gathered, there's information that's been formalized. There really is a pathway where if that information is shared, it becomes, you could see a path to where prefabrication becomes the norm because people are less afraid of it. And we're in this weird moment where if you share that information, your reward is to become commoditized. And if those partnerships don't exist that allow for that information sharing, it just becomes just this weird sort of obstacle to overcome. And we have seen over and over again in our line of work that if we have a trusted partner and we share valuable information about how to integrate prefabricated panels from the very first day, that everybody wins. And then we've seen enterprising individuals in similar companies that might not have been part of the conversation or might have other incentives, that you take that same information and figure out how far and wide they can disseminate it. And a business in prefabrication, when people are spending millions of dollars to stand up businesses, giving away the secret sauce is
So how do you overcome the kind of chicken and the egg dilemma to get enough inertia built up to overcome that?
Yeah, so for me, it's just a process of building trust. There's certain customers, clients, end users that have consistently, time and time again, come back to our firm or our network of fabricators with Stowe Panel and demonstrated that the information we give them is used prudently and used to benefit the project and the customer, but not used in a way that's detrimental to the investments that have been made. But that's a long process. That's project after project. And there are people that fit in that category. There's companies that fit in that category. And we're lucky to have found some and follow them around.
You're saying you get comfortable.
Yeah.
And don't look for those quick hits, and it's a long-term play.
That's correct.
Yeah.
We're looking for long-term partnerships and relationships. As I came up in our third generation family business, it's almost antiquated now. We often talked about we have 20-year customers. Well, we were saying that 20 years ago. So now I suppose I should be saying we're looking for 40-year customers, right?
Yeah.
So that's where we're at, is we're looking for people and companies who are interested in expanding their offering, expanding their success, creating win-win scenarios. And if we help them do that, we're rewarded by a deeper, more useful and more productive partnership, not with that low bid mentality.
Yeah, I like it. But let's pivot to the technologies. AI, huge buzzword, huge trend. Everybody's talking about it. How does AI, the automation, and the digital workflows factor into the equation?
I haven't seen a lot of practical use cases in my specific world for AI. Generative design looks amazing. I think paired with parametric design and a rule set could be really powerful. I think the amount of data that needs to be collected in order for AI to help my specific situation that hasn't been built yet. That data set hasn't been built yet. That said, Stow Panel is, an initiative from Stow Corp, which is Stow Corp is a $2 billion a year international building products manufacturing company. And they have a software division in Germany. And we're writing software specific to both early design and budgeting for panel layouts and estimating through the shop drawing, production, and design, and all the way out onto the production floor with Stow Panel Operator. And what's really nice about that suite of offerings is they started with a clean sheet of paper or a blank screen, I guess. And they're all connected in the background with a data hub and a neural network. So when I say it's not useful today, it's not me being a Luddite. We literally are collecting the data now for a future in which we can utilize successful projects and maybe some of the unsuccessful projects to inform our decision making in the future. So when I think about panel projects, there's a handful of things that really drive our designs. It's the desired aesthetic outcome, where the joints are going to be, what materials we're using. It's, our connection points, and it's, the trucking, getting it to the site. So those all drive the panel size and shape. But beyond that, and we're looking at factory production level, we have the ability to benchmark against our Stow Panel affiliates. So for me personally, it's like, well, if one of our affiliates is really, really good at brick veneer and we're tracking that data and we understand what the size and shape of that panel was and who was doing it, now that just provides that benchmarking of not only continuous improvement across many affiliates, but we can also start feeding that back into the estimating software and panel layout and geometry where maybe our panelizing software will favor certain sizes and shapes based on material finish. And I think that the sky's the limit with that. I think eventually it will be accounting for factors that go just well beyond what one single human could factor in every job. I also think it's an important part of scaling. I did a small talk yesterday, and a lot of it centered around, that our industry can't scale if everyone has to be a unicorn or a rock star. Like, we have to be able to create software processes, supports that somebody can come out of college and be productive without having to be a 15-year veteran. And I think different companies are doing that very well. I would like to think that our company is doing it well and will do it better in the future. But I think it needs to be an industry-wide phenomenon for us to really scale and not be limited by the human capital that does or does not exist. Everyone talks about the workforce shortage as if it's all about hammers and trowels. It's not. The workforce shortage extends into all of our offices, project management, the available people to just push the buttons that need to be pushed in order for us to be successful.
It's a more 360 picture than what people's go-to instinct is, for sure. So you mentioned your class. What are some takeaways so far from Advancing Prefab?
I really liked Amy's keynote this morning. I think that's probably the single most important issue in our industry at this time is that golden rule. He who holds the gold makes the rules. So if owners and developers say they want something different and better, they will get it. But as long as it's up to individual contractors or individual, market segments to decide what's normal and what we're going to continue to do or not do, I think we'll get the same. I think there's an enormous amount of energy and institutional momentum and the ability to just carry on doing tomorrow what we did yesterday. And as long as that exists and the ownership groups are not pressing for that change, that we'll see just more of the same.
Mm-hmm. What do you think the next step then is in the industrializing of construction?
I mean, when I think about industrialized construction, I sort of think in, anecdotes or small thoughts of like you could buy all the car parts and assemble a car in your driveway, but you would never in a million years do that. Like that just doesn't happen anymore unless you're a hobbyist, right? So the idea that we are still functioning in a world where we could buy bathroom pods, but we prefer to ship in 4,000 individual pieces of equipment and assemble them. Like, I think that there will be a day where we look at that and it's almost comical.
Yeah.
And
why
so
do we do that?
yeah, why do we do that? Well, because we always did that. And that's the only thing that used to be available. And that's how we configure, our ultimate custom bathroom, because I wanted this very specific tile. There's nothing wrong with that at face value. I just think that when you look at for-profit institutions or, or government institutions like schools, in some cases, hospitals, like everything being a jewel box just doesn't make sense. And there's so many aspects of our life that we don't function that way. We don't function that way with cars or furniture or anything else. Like we buy what's available. There's 1,000 companies trying to vie for our business and it works. And this whole, I'm going to assemble everything and from 1,000 or hundreds of thousands of pieces of parts, I think will eventually be antiquated. And I think that will be, it'll start by, for lack of a better term, we always talk about kit of parts, right? The other thing that, I've really enjoyed, I had an opportunity to consult on a fairly large project, and the gentleman that was managing that project said something to me that has always stuck with me. And he said, I really could care less about designing for manufacturing. He's like, I can manufacture anything. I designed for site assembly because that's what's hard. And I thought that was really interesting because it's, on one hand, it could be a throwaway comment, but what his goal was an 8-minute cycle time on the crane for setting panels. And he was willing to pay up to a 40% premium for the panel costs to get his 8 minutes. He said, because I can manufacture anything in a plant. I want the site assembly to be so seamless and so predictable that when things show up, they go on the building and there's no question.
That's interesting. So as we start to kind of land the plane here, a couple of rapid fire questions for you. What's the phrase modeling the future? What does that mean and look like to you?
I think there's modeling the future. In our business, you naturally think of 3D models. And for me, I think of it as business models. I think we're not being creative enough with our delivery methods. We're trying to be one more contractor who bought a warehouse to fab in. And I think the future of this business will look very different than that. And that there's a lot of specialties in this industry that don't fit in a traditional business model. We haven't talked about the fact that I'm in the prefab business and I don't even own a plant. My entire business is people sitting in an office with computers. And because I have access to a robust fabrication network, I'm in the prefabrication business. I am successfully executing projects. 9 years ago, I would have told you this business model didn't exist. Yeah. And I think that we need to be more creative about what we think about the business model and who's providing value.
I like that. What does innovation mean to you?
Yeah, for me, innovation is creative problem solving. It's taking a process that any one of the members of this community could do and asking how to do it better or faster or less expensive, and really listening to the customer, whether that's an internal customer or an external customer, to solve the problem at hand.
How do people find out more information and connect with you?
Well, you can find me at greatlatesprefabrication.com, LinkedIn, and if you're interested in prefabricated exterior wall panels, stove panel technology.
Awesome. Well, final question for you. If I could give you all construction power, you could snap your fingers and innovate one thing in the industry, what would you pick to innovate?
Contract.
In what way?
I think that the contractual arrangement between owners, general contractors, specialty trades, and vendors is as antiquated as some of our thinking.
Matt, thanks so much for taking the time and joining the show.
Thank you. Take care.